Activate.
This is Living Power with Dan Hurst.
All right, we're in John chapter 17. We're finishing chapter 17. And in this particular passage, and you have it in your study guides, we go to verse 20. John 17, verse 20. I do not ask for these only. This is Jesus praying, and this is the conclusion of that prayer. I do not ask for these only. He'd been praying about his disciples, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, the word of the disciples, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. So here's the setup of what Jesus is talking about. He is praying for you. He's praying, if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, then he is praying about you and for you. This is such an amazingly intimate prayer, but I think it's so important for us to really get our head around what it is that he's saying. So, verse 22, the glory that you have given me, I have given to them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them and you in me, that they may become perfectly one, so that the world may know that you sent me and loved them even as you loved me. Father, I desire that they also, whom you have given me, may be with me where I am, to see my glory that you have given me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Father, even though the world does not know you, I know you, and these know that you have sent me. I have made known to them your name, and I will continue to make it known, that the love with which you have loved me may be in them and I in them. Now, as we finish our study on this magnificent prayer that Jesus offered at the close of his time with the disciples up in the upper room, and remember, we're coming to the conclusion, not really quite there yet, but coming to the conclusion of this last week of Jesus' life, which began, if you'll recall, with riding into Jerusalem on the donkey and everybody wanting to make him king. You know, they wanted to take him and make him king. And now here he is in the upper room. He's had this last supper, this last time with his disciples. He's given them some last-minute instructions. They don't know what's coming. They don't know that within a few hours he's going to be arrested and crucified. They don't know that, but Jesus does. And he's given them some last instructions. And then the 17th chapter is this prayer that Jesus prays out loud to the Father about his disciples and those that would follow, as we see in this passage today. So we're listening, or we're reading this conversation that Jesus had with the Father about you. It's pretty amazing. It's like you're standing behind Jesus and the Father, and they're talking about you, and you're hearing everything they're saying. This is what Jesus is saying about you. I think it's amazing to me that Jesus has poured out his heart to his disciples and to the Father. He's given them some last-minute instructions, which apply to us also, by the way. And the most striking thing to me about all of this whole evening that Jesus has had with the Last Supper with his disciples, Judas has decided to betray him. Jesus has given his final instructions to the disciples. He has this prayer, and he concludes the whole evening. This is the conclusion of the whole evening. He concludes praying for you. Think about that. That whole evening that Jesus has spent with his disciples finishes with him praying about you. What Jesus has to say about you in these last few verses is life-changing. If we can get our head around this, I promise you that you will never, never be the same. And I want to give you some things that Jesus is praying about. We're going to see 5 things that Jesus is praying about you. And as we look at these things, we're just going to kind of go through them step by step. And I want you to really grasp and think about what Jesus is saying, because what he's saying is this is what he wants out of your life. I mean, if the very last thing that Jesus prays about at the Last Supper and the whole evening concludes with him praying about you, don't you think it's kind of important? And don't you think it's pretty life-changing? It's like Jesus knows that within an hour, maybe 2 hours, he's going to be arrested and then crucified within a few hours. He knows all of that, and the very last thing that he says to his disciples in the upper room is about you, or that he says to the Father that he prays is about you. That's pretty important. And so let's look at these 5 things that he's praying about you. Because if you can understand what it is that God wants out of your life, because if Jesus is praying this, what he's saying is this is his will for your life. This is what he wants for your life. I mean, if Jesus is praying these 5 things and he's saying this is what I want for them, that's a pretty good indication of what God's will is for your life. And what he wants on a daily basis. On a daily basis. Jesus is praying for these things. And by the way, I'll give you a little heads up. At the very end of the prayer, he says, I will continue this. So he's still doing this. He's still praying. He's still seeking these things for your life.
On behalf of Dan Hurst and the Open Class, we want to thank you for watching. We hope it was a blessing.